What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel where today we're going to be back working on our 1962 Bel Air wagon project, a project that we haven't worked on in quite a while, but today is the day. And today we're going to continue on with the assembly process, focusing on some of the suspension, the brake components, and also the exhaust. If you're new to the channel, be sure to check out the previous videos on this project to see how we got to this point. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button so you can follow along with everything that goes on here on the channel. Now let's get to work. Now, I've been doing a lot of little tasks, and just being honest, that's really all that's left. You know, we have the major components like the engine and transmission in the frame. We have our suspension together, but we have a few little minor things that we need to do just to kind of finish it up and bring it all together. Like yesterday, I worked on the brake booster master cylinder setup. It took a little bit of work, but I had to go through this and adjust it all out and get my positioning right. And there's an offset bar here that goes into the pedal. I had to get all that linkage right. You definitely want the brakes to be right. And it's going to be hard to see, but our linkage to our brake pedal is hooked up. You can see our 15-inch wheels that'll bolt up to our disc brake swap here in the front on both sides. So right now I'm going to need to do a little bit of work to this steering linkage, and I'll give you a little bit of backstory of the problems that I was having. So originally I rebuilt the 62 manual link, and I was having problems with the pitman arm lining up, and come to find out that when you convert to power steering, as I did here, you have to change that center link. So I got a 63/64 center link, and everything seems to go together pretty well. Now I did have a little bit of trouble getting these tie rods on, and they were really tight, but the problem that I'm having now is if you look, the bar is just a little bit unlevel, and if you look right here where our brake lines are against the frame rails, it's kind of tight. Now the clearances are kind of tight because we do have the suspension all the way down, and as we raise up the car, this bar will in theory be lower as the frame goes up. So still kind of stumped on why this center link was still unlevel, and after doing a little bit of research, our problem lies right here on the idler arm. Now this is the correct idler arm, the correct replacement idler arm I should say, and when I put this thing together I didn't do it the right way. So if you look over here on this side, there's a spacer. This spacer needs to go here in between the frame and the idler arm. So that's incorrect. That's the incorrect way that I have it set up. So I'm going to have to move that. So to level out the steering link, I'm going to have to take this bottom bolt out, and from what I understand, I'm going to have to re-drill a hole once I get it in the correct position. And that'll let us get our idler arm parallel to our pitman arm, which will put our center link in the correct position. So I've got our idler arm adjusted out, and it looks pretty parallel now. And we've got a little bit more room back there behind the tie rod ends. And if you look right here at our idler arm, you can see I moved it maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch, somewhere around there. And we've got the spacer right where it needs to be. We got it all torqued down, and we are going to have to do a little bit of touch up on the frame here, but that's not really a big deal. Another thing that I'm going to do to this car is a front shock relocation, and here are our brackets. And if you look right here, as you know, we do have this thing on air ride, and the factory shock sits in that pocket where that airbag is. So we need to relocate them over here to the side of the frame rail so we can run our shock from here down to our lower control arm. And that's how the bracket sits in there. As you can see, we're going to need to drill some holes. We got some self-tapping bolts to hold this thing in there. And we're just going to get these things mocked up for the time being. We're going to coat these at a later date when it gets a little warmer outside. And here's our driver's side bracket installed. As you can see, we've got all our holes drilled, and we got our self-tapping bolts in. And this thing's pretty strong. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. And the passenger side bracket is on. Now I have the shocks on order, so I'm going to wait till I get the shocks before I drill a hole for our stud for the lower mount. Looking underneath, you can see I've made a little bit of progress. We have our brand new 2.5-inch stainless steel exhaust system. And this exhaust looks really well. It's going to exit right in front of the rear wheel. Now this is just a mock-up for the time being, just to see how everything fits. I've got to do a little bit of work to our hanger here because we have a bolt-on hanger, as you see here. And we have some MagnaFlow mufflers. Now I did a little bit of research, and these things sound pretty good. Now there's our front part of the exhaust pipe. Now we are going to have to cut that up so it'll mat to the muffler here, come underneath the frame rail, and connect to our header flange there, as you see. Same thing on the driver's side, we're going to have to make that custom pipe that goes up to our header. Now the angle we have here on the driver's side is definitely a little different than here on the passenger side. And we've got more room to work on the driver's side, but we do have quite a bit of room here on the passenger side as well. We'll just have to make a little tighter turn for the exhaust. So a little bit of progress has been made. If you look, you can see I have our brand new shocks installed onto both sides, and I've been working on tidying up this wiring a little bit just to make it lay a little cleaner onto the engine. Up on top of the engine, I have our vacuum line going to our brake booster, and I also have a brand new fuel line that connects our fuel rail that'll run down here and connect to a hard line that'll run to the body of the car. So more time has passed, but we have made some progress. We have our exhaust downpipes from our headers to our exhaust. We have those mocked up, they're tack welded together. This is the driver's side, and over here is the passenger side. We have them all mocked up, ready to hook up to our exhaust system. And here I have the passenger side exhaust sitting pretty close to where I want it. It's nice and level, and I've got it to where it's at the correct angle. I don't believe it's going to hit the floor pan. And the driver's side, well, we need to do a little bit of work there, but we're concentrating on the passenger side right now. So this whole project is about figuring things out, and this is no exception. Here is our throttle pedal, and as you can see, this is a universal throttle pedal. This is actually for a 55 to 57 Chevrolet Bel Air. This thing was like 70 bucks compared to 200 and some for the one that's supposedly supposed to bolt up in here. But we're trying to get this pedal to sit right here where you see, and if you notice, I've already cut our bracket. I've cut our arm off our bracket, that is. And you can see the angle was just not going to work. I mean, it's too far in, the angle's bad. So our solution is to cut a new stud and mount it, as you see here, to our pedal assembly, as you see here, off the end. This is pretty time consuming. We got to take a lot of measurements to make sure we get this right, get it in the right spot, and it's going to be a little tricky. I'm going to have to take this apart. I'm going to spot weld it up, and we'll make sure it's in the correct spot before we weld it up for the final fit. So progress is being made. There's just a lot of little tiny things that need to be addressed, whether it be wiring, fueling, cooling, just little tiny little things. There's a lot of parts chasing that's went on that you haven't seen. There's probably going to be some more parts chasing. You know, you work on something, and then the next thing you know, you need something else. You got to leave, go to the store, you got to order it. A lot of time is involved in that kind of stuff. So we're just going to keep at it until we get this thing finished.